So you all know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and that is still prevalent even today. I remember in high school, if we were caught being silly in town or making noise or anything like that, it wasn't uncommon for a stranger to clip you upside your head, take you home and tell your parents, and then you get another beating when you get home. That because they know that if you're coming from a good home, your parents would not want you to act like this in public. And therefore, they've taken it upon themselves to discipline you because your parents aren't around at that particular moment in time. But it's more, it goes beyond discipline. It's also, if we were to find a child who was lost, they would take care of that child and take them home, find a way to get them home. That actually happened to a friend of mine when he was about 8 or 9. He got separated from his mom and dad in town. And this lovely lady took him to her house because he didn't know his address. He didn't know where he lived. So he actually stayed with her for a couple of days while she tried to track down where they were. And since then, she's been a part of their family. That's the Africa I know. For it to work like that, when the village works together, I like to think of it as a living organism or a body. Just like the human body, there's different parts of the body that work together to make a whole. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12 to 24. I love this passage because I love analogies, and I love this one in particular because, and I had to write this down, I love it because when you stop and you think of the human body and you take in all its individual parts and see how seamlessly those parts work together to create a whole, it is a beautiful and powerful image of the need and importance for diversity of form and function. That's a lot of words. It might have gone over some people's heads. It went over my head and I wrote it. The best way I can put it to you is if we take the context of boxing. We're all familiar with boxing. Yes? Everyone's familiar with boxing. And a lot of people who don't know much about boxing think that a punch is just got to do with your arm. But there's so much intricacy in throwing a proper, powerful punch. It actually starts from your feet. It starts from your stance. When you throw a punch, there's a twist in your leg, you twist your ankle, then your hip follows through, and so on and so forth. There's so much more involved in a punch than just your fist. And we've heard some like amazing stories. We've heard Sonia, who's not here today, who's a social worker, and what she has to go through in getting children to find parents for these children, and some of the obstacles she's come against. But through it all, she's relied on God, and it's got her through. And then we heard about what happened to Nikki and Jane. They work in I guess it's kind of like a school for children who have been excluded, and there was a very violent attack on one of the boys that they had to intervene in. And so when you hear stories like that, it's like that is fruitfulness on the front line, because they couldn't have dealt with those situations as well as they did without having, a strong foundation in the Word and having God as their anchor. But on the flip side of that, there's some of us who our front line doesn't look anything like that. My front line would be, I work in retail, and I have a lot of interesting customers. Janice has heard a lot about them, but my front line doesn't look like that. Well, actually, my front line is holding back from tainting my salvation, shall I say, because you get a lot of people. I work in an African and Caribbean store, and a lot of people come in and they want to haggle where there's no room to haggle, or they expect you to do something for them when that's not even remotely close to your job description. Does that make sense? And so most of the time, if I literally bit my tongue every time someone spoke to me, I would not have a tongue left. But it's in comparison to someone like Dal, who's a police officer, my job is a walk in the park. And so it can be a bit discouraging when you hear all these amazing things and you think to yourself, well, that's not what I do. Some of you might be stay-at-home parents and your front line is your children. Or some of you, for whatever reason, may be at home alone. There is no front line. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? And it can be really discouraging. So I started thinking about, what does being on the front line actually mean? So me being me, I went to the dictionary and I looked up what front line means. So the definition for the word front line is the military line or part of an army that is closest to the enemy. So it's the part of the army that's closest to the enemy. And then me being me, I linked that to boxing because the front line of a boxer is his fist. That is the front line. So, but a fist on its own is not a punch. That's like the video said, that's not where the punch starts from. That's not where the power comes from. The power comes from his feet, from the base. The whole body is involved in the punch. Now, the passage we just read described us, the Christians, the church, as the body of Christ. But not all of us are on the front line. Not all of us are the fist. Everybody following me so far? Yeah? Okay. So you may not feel like you are on the front line or have any contact of relevance. You may think that you're not out there changing the world. Or you may not feel like you have a front line at all, which is fine though, because you still have a role to play. How many of you guys have heard of Bezalel in the Bible? See, that's why I like this guy. So I'm gonna read a brief passage. Don't worry about putting it up. It's from Exodus. It's Exodus 35, verse 30 to 31. And Moses said unto the children of Israel, See, the Lord hath called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and he hath filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship. And Bezalel was actually the foreman of the tabernacle crew, the tabernacle that needed to be built. And he was a man who was filled with wisdom, the Spirit of God, knowledge, and an ability to work with his hands. But not only that, we find that him and his crew were excited to perform the work that God had called them to do. And Moses was thankful for Bezalel because Moses had so much to deal with the Israelites. There was so many issues going on that he had to deal with. But one less thing he had to worry about was the tabernacle, because Bezalel was playing his role. He was doing his support work. He was doing the function of the body that he was built for. So our role in the body doesn't always mean we're going to be up front. It doesn't always mean we're going to be out changing the world. Sometimes we need to play a support role, like the boxer's legs. A boxer can't throw a good punch if he doesn't have strong legs. When you see boxers working out, they work out every inch of their body because every inch of their body has something to do with the fight. Does that make sense? So sometimes if you think I'm at home, I have no front line, or in my job I don't have to deal with anything like that, you can switch your role up and start praying and supporting the people who are in those situations. If you're at home and you know Dallas on shift, 5-minute prayer, 2-minute prayer, just to protect him and to help him. He won't even know you're doing that, but he will feel a surge. He will feel the reason why Dal has come home from an 11-hour shift and is the first person here and is going out to another shift is not because he is superhuman. It's because he has the support of the body. Does that make sense? So praying for others could be your front line. If you pray for people like Nikki and Jane, that they do such an amazing work in these kids that none of them get attacked again, or none of them feel the need to attack someone. And God forbid that it happens again, that they are there on the front line to do what they did the last time and encourage other people to do the same. Or you might be the eyes. Now, again, going back to boxing, what they used to do in the olden days, if your eyes got too swollen, is they would have to cut and bleed your eyes so that the swelling would go down. Because if you can't see what you're doing, you can't do a good job. Olivia might have a tough situation. Olivia might have all these ideas for the hub, But if she can't see something that somebody else has seen here, you might have a brilliant idea that has never even crossed her mind. So you could be the eyes, and you could guide, because without the eyes, you can't guide the punch. So it doesn't matter how powerful the punch is. If you're throwing it willy-nilly, you're not going to make any contact. So you could be the eyes guiding the front line. You could be the other fist. If you notice the stance, he was stood like this and he was throwing his punches. And there's still this fist here because this fist is protecting the head. So as much as you could be a front line, you could also be protection. But not only that, this fist is poised for the knockout punch. So you just need to stay ready for when your role comes up, for when you need to be the front line. Because I've heard that a person's conversion to Christianity is based on 7 encounters with 7 different Christians. You could be that first Christian who plants the seed, or you could be the knockout punch number 7 at the end. Your job is just to stay ready for whichever part of the role that is. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 18, it says, "But our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where He wants it." You're perfectly suited for wherever you are right now. God doesn't make mistakes. You may feel like you're in the wrong job. God does not make mistakes. Wherever you are ready and you are built and prepared for that role. Now, our roles may switch up as we mature in Christ, but where we are right now is as important as where we want to be. And when we all play our part as a body, when the body works in perfect unison, amazing things can happen. Can you play the last clip for me, please?
Activate interlock. Dynatherms connected. Infracells up. Mega thrusters are go. Go Voltron Force! Form feet and legs. Form arms and body. And all form the head.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, that is Voltron, Defender of the Universe. Voltron is made up of 5 individual pilots who all fly robot lions because that works in space. And separately, they do amazing things. But when they form Voltron, there's not a single force in the universe that can destroy them. If we work together as the body, trying to figure out where we fit in, whether we form feet and legs, arms and torso, or the head, once we come together, nothing's going to stop us.